The mics are on now.
Hello?
Yeah. Yeah, I can hear you. Okay. I hear.
I don't think my mic is on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I hear you.
Now it is?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to call today's meeting of the regular town council to order. It's Tuesday, November the 7th, and it is 3 p.m. With that, Eddie, we've called order before. Do we need to call roll again because it's the regular meeting? Yeah, let's go ahead and do that then.
Yes.
On the
Councilmember
vice
Reeves,
Here.
Councilmember McKee-Kent,
Here.
Councilmember Tripp,
Here.
Vice Mayor Knight,
Here?
Mayor Mueller.
Here. Thank you. And with that, can we all stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Glad to see we still have some public with us, so thank you. Thank you for the Pledge of Allegiance, everybody. And today I'd like to go ahead next and adopt today's agenda. Can we get a motion and a second from the council, please? Unless we have any changes.
Move adoption of the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? That passes unanimously. Now it's time, item 5, council member announcements. Well, I have some. So let's, tomorrow we, in collaboration and support with a lot of thanks to our Yountville Chamber, there will be our annual Veterans Day luncheon tomorrow. There'll be 2 seatings of that, and it's always we always have a lot of great turnout and support and for volunteers from the chamber, but also our chamber does a lot putting all this together every year, organizing all the chefs who donate their time, and it's really always an amazing event, probably one of the most popular, I think, for the veterans as well. So I just want to call out thanks to everyone for that. And on Sunday, November the 19th, we will be having our annual holiday Christmas. This year it's going to be extra special. We're going to be, Santa Claus is coming, I hear, so we're looking forward to that. It's always a great big turnout. We've got we have some food treats and cookies, and in addition to turning on all the lights, which is really makes Yountville very, very beautiful this time of year. We'll be lighting all the 24 trees going up California Drive to the Veterans Home. So it's really going to be wonderful. So let's see. With that, anything else that anybody would like to announce?
Just that,
Vice Mayor Knight, can you just, we're going to go with turning our lights on, too.
okay, all right. Sorry, I'm away. Thank you.
All right. Vice Mayor Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. So next Tuesday, November 14th at 2 p.m., we will have here in this chambers a standing committee meeting for the Emergency Preparedness Committee to talk about planning. And I think I have that right where it's set at 2 p.m. to talk about planning for next year for everything. We finished our 3 speaker series with COAD and Red Cross and Firewise, and now this is just for planning in the future for ideas. So please come out or send the council suggestions about how we can do more planning, more community events, preparing our community for any future emergencies. So that's next Tuesday at 2 p.m. in this chamber for a planning meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Tripp.
I just wanted to thank Eric and Robin for all their work on the emergency preparedness. I only was able to go to 2 of the meetings, but they were really great and got me inspired, and I actually got a kit together for a family member who is a kind of a laggard. So it was just really good remembering some of the things that I had already heard and then some new things. So thank you. It was a lot of work. Thank you.
All right. And with that, let's move on to public comment. This is a time for public comment on anything that is not on today's agenda. If you'd like to come forward, please come up to the podium and give us your name, please, sir.
My name is this working? Sound good? My name is Don Weatherall. I actually am a homeowner here in Yountville at 139 Vineyard Circle, and currently renting our 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo, and my wife, myself, and my kids live in North Napa. And I'm speaking today to publicly disagree with the mandatory fee placed on homeowners who are renting their home in the town of Yountville. I recently received a letter notifying that I was in violation. I have renters that are moving out, and I need to rent the 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo immediately in order for me to keep up with the mortgage payments. I want to express my deep concern and disagreement with this ordinance. It imposes a fee for renting my own personal home. As a homeowner and a resident of Yountville, former resident, I lived here for 8 years. I believe that this ordinance is unjust and burdensome. First and foremost, the fee seems to unfairly target responsible homeowners who choose to rent out their property. As a responsible owner, we have been diligent in renting for no less than 12-month lease agreements and not using Airbnb or short-term rentals. Many of us have invested significant time and resources in maintaining our home, and the ability to rent them helps out our expenses. Moreover, this ordinance is negatively affecting the local economy, in my opinion. This is discouraging residents from offering their homes for long-term rentals. It reduces full-time residents and the revenue generated from those residents at local grocery stores and restaurants. Today, I know, and I'm sure you are all aware, that Yountville has many homes here that are second and third homes for Bay Area folks. Most of those folks only spend a few months at most in this town. If I'm renting to local, currently right now I'm renting to 2 people that both work in the wine business, one of which is in Yountville and one is in St. Helena, which is creating an opportunity for people to actually live in this community. The folks that don't live here aren't providing, a day-to-day basis, people spending money. And I find that this $90 fee that I'm being asked to pay to rent out my own home is a little ridiculous. And I think that the folks that are having their second and third homes are paying nothing and only spending a few months out of the year here. From what I understand, the $90 fee is here to help curtail residents from using Airbnb. As I mentioned, I got my notice in the mail because I posted an ad to rent my place. And I'm wondering, and I know you can't answer me today, but what does that $90 actually go to? I would love to see an itemized report of how that money is spent. And I just want to also say that penalizing myself, who's an actual responsible owner, just seems unfair. We currently rent our condo for $3,400. And if I did the math correctly, if I wanted to, under the radar, rent to tourist Airbnb without y'all knowing, I would make about $6,000 a month, which would be double what my mortgage is. So I find it odd that you're putting a mandate and making me pay a $90 fee when I'm doing the right things. It's not about the money. I could easily pay the $90. It's more about the whole gist of that ordinance. But again, this is something that I think should be addressed. I kindly request you all to reconsider this. And I do have a solution. If I'm going to pay $90 to rent, instead of paying the $90 rent, I propose that you ask us renters to provide the lease that we have with our renters. If we can provide you a 12-month lease, then I think that $90 should be waived. Because I think what we're doing as homeowners is providing an amazing place to live We love Yountville. I didn't want to move, but I had a second kid, and the 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo with 2 dogs, 2 kids, and a wife just wasn't going to cut it. But that would be my proposal, and I hope that you would consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come up and make a public comment? And I will close the public comment and move on to the consent calendar. We have 4 items.
Oh, one second.
Sorry, I was a little slow on the draw, Mayor.
Oh, Josh,
Hi,
come on
all.
up.
Hello. Sorry about that. I just wanted to, I hadn't been here in a while, and so with attending today, I just wanted to give a couple updates about the home. You already hit on a couple of them, but wanted to thank the town and the Parks and Rec Department first and foremost. Our home members had an amazing time at the Yountville Days Parade. They had just an amazing time. Our new drum group is really hitting on all cylinders, and so we thank everyone who participated. The council, we thank you for getting together with our Allied Council, and then our Hills Angels wheelchair drill team, and the Little Thunder drum group. They just had an amazing time. So wanted to share that. Also, as you mentioned, we're very excited about the Chef's Luncheon tomorrow and all the amazing work the Yountville Chamber of Commerce has done. It's the 19th annual. A lot of you will be there tomorrow, so thank you for your support as always. I truly believe it's our home members' favorite event of the year. And then I also wanted to thank you as well for regarding the tree lighting for the town and having the trees lit at the home. And we also participated. We're going to have our front sign lit and a couple of trees right at the front. So it'll be all encompassing, all of Yountville this year. So we hope you get to see that. It'll be a beautiful, festive holiday season. And then two things. We still have volunteer opportunities available at the home, as always, so please feel free to reach out to our volunteer services department, especially with the holidays. There's holiday decorating and things like that can be done, and we also have a special holiday donations project in which you can essentially sponsor a gift for a veteran during the holidays. We have a project we've done for years where every veteran gets a gift, and so anyone's welcome to participate in that. You can contact our volunteer services department for that. And then lastly, Wreaths Across America this year. We want to start getting the invitations or the word out for the home, our ceremony in collaboration with the Yountville Chamber again. That'll be on Saturday, December 16th at 11 a.m. up at the cemetery at the home. And I believe Whitney and the Chamber will be sending out an email regarding information for that this Thursday. And then we've also began posting on our Facebook page for that event. So that's it for now. Just wanted to say hi. And
one more time, if people want to volunteer, do you have an email address that we can?
I'm sorry, I don't offhand. I presented it last time, but I can get that for you.
Okay,
Absolutely.
great.
Thank you all. Thanks.
So now I'll close the public comment and ask the council if we have a motion or any discussion on the consent calendar to approve.
I move that we approve the consent calendar as written.
I second.
And Eddie, would you like us to vote electronically for this one?
Yes.
All right.
And Council, we're ready to vote.
Okay.
Okay, all votes are in, and I'm stopping the vote, and it passed unanimously.
Thank you very much for that. And we have 3 guest presentations this evening. We are going to start with the Napa County Sheriff. I hope we rotate the sheriff between CAL FIRE every time. Or there's a flip of a coin. Is that how it works? So we have Sergeant Malott will be presenting for Napa County Sheriff today.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. For those that don't know me, I am Mike Malott, Sergeant with the Napa Sheriff's Office.
Can you pull your mic down just a
Yeah.
little bit? All right.
There's that better?
Yep, great.
And I will be presenting the Sheriff's Office quarterly report for third quarter of this year for July through September. You guys there? Thank you. So starting with just our general activity, not a lot of surprises for this quarter. Across the board for the whole report, it's going to be pretty similar to last quarter and the quarter before. We had 859 calls for service this quarter. That's up slightly from last quarter, down a bit from same quarter last year. If you all recall, we've changed how we define a patrol check, and so the number of patrol checks we log has come down quite a bit. So taking that into account, we're probably about the same as last quarter, if someone wants to do the math. Moving on to reports. Our report numbers overall are down for this quarter. From last quarter and the quarter before. I don't know how to answer why that occurred. It's just, I think, based on how the Tally Oppo works, we get some outliers, so we're dropping down a bit. Our arrests are after the outlier of last quarter, where we had twice as many arrests, and again, I can't explain why. We're back to our normal numbers with 7 arrests this quarter. The arrests for this quarter are generally the same thing that we've had prior quarters. We had 1 domestic violence arrest, a couple of DUI arrests, a public intoxication arrest, 1 felony vandalism arrest, and then our standard arrest of a bicycle theft suspect, which since I've been here seems to happen once a quarter. We can move on to the next. So as far as our FBI reported crime stats, we did have 1 rape reported during this quarter. I can't, based on the nature of that call, go into a whole lot of detail beyond to say that it's an allegation of a rape with a known acquaintance of the victim. And that was immediately referred to our Sheriff's Office Investigation Division, and they took over the investigation of it at that point. We additionally had 2 simple assault reports. One of those was related to a road rage incident on Highway 29, and the second was related to the prior mentioned domestic violence call at one of our local hotels. We had 1 grand theft report. That's, again, related to a hotel. It was an allegation of theft of items from a hotel room. And then moving on, 2 petty theft reports. One of those was the bicycle theft I previously mentioned. The other was the theft of fuel from a city-owned truck. That also resulted in one of our vandalism statistics because the suspect in that actually damaged the truck while stealing the fuel. That's the second time same truck got hit. The truck's been moved. It's no longer parked in the same spot. And we do not have an identified suspect in that case. We have just a general suspect. We also have collected, there was DNA evidence collected, or evidence left behind that was submitted for DNA testing. So while that type of case, obviously doesn't have the priority for DNA testing that some other cases get as far as the time that will get tested. And so hopefully we'll identify a suspect in that case. The additional vandalism case was a felony vandalism involving a subject who kicked down the door of a residence where he had previously stayed, and the landlord requested charges for the damage. We can move on to traffic collision statistics, or just general traffic related statistics. During the quarter, we had 1 injury collision. That was a bicycle versus a stopped car. The car had stopped in the middle of Washington Street. The bicyclist ran into the rear of it. There may have been some mechanical issues with the bike, but the reason I included the photo up here is you can see that the bike actually sheared at the frame. It's a fairly lightweight bike, so not a heavy bike, but that's just the damage from the momentum of the bicyclist versus a fixed object. So I think bicycles have come up a couple of times. I do think we get out on bikes, and I do it myself. And you don't we do things on bicycles that we wouldn't do on a motorcycle or in a car because somehow it's just mentally different, I think. And so just a good reminder that that's what can happen, not with a car hitting a bike, just a bike under its own power hitting a car. That's not an e-bike or anything like that. The two non-injury collisions during the quarter were a vehicle versus a parked car, so a distracted driver that veered off and hit a car, and then a vehicle versus a stop sign, which also seems to happen a couple of times a quarter in town. Traffic citations for the quarter are down slightly from last quarter, about the same as the same quarter last year. Misdemeanor citations, we had none. This quarter was generally driving on a suspended license, or that's generally what our misdemeanor cites are. Parking citations up a bit, quarter over quarter and year over year. Vehicle checks up, and traffic stops, similar to cites, down from last quarter, up a bit from same quarter last year. We move on to training and engagement events that we participated in or were present at during the quarter. 4th of July event at Veterans Park, a few benefit events, the Crush Challenge bicycle ride, the Walk to End Alzheimer's, the September 11th ceremony at Community Hall, and the movies and music in the parks, which Deputy Mulgado, I don't know that he made all those, but he was in the area for most of them. During the quarter for training, Mulgado, Deputy Mulgado, who's continued his training towards being on the MATE team, the Major Accident Investigation Team for the county. He attended a 40-hour intermediate collision course and a drug abuse recognition course. Deputy Oster, this quarter, and actually didn't happen during the quarter, it just happened last week, but probably important enough to bring up. Deputy Oster, after 2 years working assigned to the town, has rotated back to the Valley. He will still be in the area. Right now he's assigned to Valley Day Shift North Beat, so you'll probably still see him around. I tend to try and get something for the firefighters in my presentation. Looking for a photograph of Deputy Oster, when I put this together, I found his LinkedIn page, which apparently he no longer has access to. And apparently Deputy Oster wanted to be a firefighter when he was in college. I know they all think we secretly want to be firefighters, and there's the evidence. Deputy Oster will be replaced by Deputy Moore. Deputy Moore started with San Diego Police Department about 19 years ago. He worked Napa Police Department for approximately 14 years, and then came to the Sheriff's Office last year. He's worked a variety of different assignments, including detectives, canine handler, SWAT officer, and school resource officer. I will say that Deputy Oster was assigned to the town, which he meaning that that wasn't his first selection. I know everybody's going to be surprised by that, but so he's rotating back. Deputy Moore asked to work in the town, so that's a benefit to us. Deputy Oster did a great job, but I think it's always helpful to have somebody who really wants to be here. So if you see Deputy Moore out and about, please say hello to him. That's he went down. There was a Facebook article. They've had us take photographs at the shelter of adoptable animals. So he went down to the shelter, ended up adopting a cat on his. He didn't plan to.
So the canine
ended up with a cat. So if we can move on to the next slide. Crime prevention and safety tips. I think we've recycled these a little bit, but holiday season, and I did talk about it last time. It brings opportunities for package thieves. Knock on wood, Yountville tends not to have a problem with this. Other areas have a lot of problem with it. The more we make available to potential thieves, the more likely we're going to attract them. So my request to the townspeople is to collect your packages when they come, as soon as they come, get them in the house so they're not sitting out there being attractive on the porch. Additionally, again, knock on wood, not a lot of issues with people breaking into vehicles in Yountville, but that getting outside of Yountville, and you don't have to go too far before that can be an issue. So anyone out doing shopping, please don't leave packages visible in your vehicle because they will get broken into and taken. And then as far as safety tips, slick roads and early arrival of darkness are going to increase roadway hazards. I know for myself, just the quick time change to being dark at 5:30. There's still a lot of people out. People haven't even gone to dinner yet, so we have a ton of pedestrians out walking. Just ask people to slow down, stop all the way at stop signs. And then hopefully when we get the lights turned on for the Festival of Lights, that'll light up the town a little bit more and we'll have some better visibility. But next slide, I think, is just our emergency numbers if anyone has questions or needs to contact us.
Thank you, Sergeant Malott. And just a special thanks for letting us know all the new deputies that are coming and going. I think our residents really greatly appreciate that. I think I walk around all the time, and everyone seems to know everybody's name. So
That's how
great.
how we like it.
Wonderful to have that. So thank you very much. Any questions from the council? Can you use your buttons so I can see who
I
wants to
did,
talk?
actually. Did you see it? Mostly
Now
just,
I
I'm
see
just
it.
curious.
Yes.
Yeah. I just wanted to thank Officer Malott. I always say this, but I think of it frequently. We're a town with a huge amount of people coming through, huge. And yet the statistics, you wouldn't know that. And I think it's because we have a very effective presence. So I want to thank you for that. And then also, and I can't remember why, but the other day something happened on Washington Street, not a big deal. And before I knew it, you were standing out there directing traffic, and which, I don't know, I know you could do the big things, but that require guns and such. But I just appreciate that as a resident that you jumped right in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Knight.
Thank you, Sergeant Malott, for your report. This just prompted me in just talking about safety. I was driving to work this morning. I noticed, like and I know this is maybe Caltrans 29, but maybe you communicate with them at our the California Boulevard, the overpass where they're doing the work. There's a lighted arrow sign that lights and shows traffic that it's narrowing from 2 to 1 lane going south, but they seem to not be using that one going north. And so when I come home at night at 5:30 when it's dark, it's challenging until you get up to the overpass to notice that lane is narrowing from 2 to 1. So I don't know. They seem to have that arrow board working going south but not going north. And if you saw them when they were working out there or asked them about flipping that one up and using it as much like they do going south, that would be probably it would help with safety there.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
No more questions from the council. So again, thank you very much, and hopefully see you at our holiday event for your next quarterly report.
This is too much information, but I'll be out of town. My daughter's coming back from college, so I will not be here.
Congratulations.
The Valley day shift sergeant is holding over for that, and we have a couple of deputies coming into town for it.
Great.
But sorry, I will miss it.
All right.
Enjoy family.
Our next guest presentation this evening is the Napa County Cal Fire Quarterly Report, and we have Fire Chief West presenting tonight. Or I guess it's still this afternoon. It's just getting kind of dark out.
Good afternoon. Russell West, Battalion Chief of Cal Fire here in Napa Valley in the town of Yountville. This is the quarterly report from us for the months of July, August, and September. Next slide. Perfect. Here's the statistics that we had. We separate it into 4 different categories. So on the left side, you'll see the graph that illustrates a separation between the calls that we responded to for the town, the vet's home, the county, and assisting Napa City for auto aid. So you'll see we ran 108 calls here in the town of Yountville itself. pretty similar to what we ran for the Vets Home. The Vets Home was 107, so very similar right there. 136 calls for the county, and we went mutual aid into the city to assist them 4 times over the 3-month period. The upper right graph is the same quarter for last year. So you'll see there we ran 107 calls for the town versus 108 for this year. So very similar, right on par. We did run a little bit less compared to for the Vets Home as well as the county. So a little less for them, but right on par for what we were running last year here in the town. And then the bottom right graph illustrates the 5-year average. So we're actually up a little over 20 calls on average for this same quarter over the 5-year span. So call volume is increasing, even though we're right on par where we were last year. Next slide. Out of those 108 calls, we broke them down into what they were. So we didn't run any fires here in the town, thankfully. Let's keep it that way. We did run a couple traffic collisions, a couple public assists, and the majority of the calls, a little over half, were medical aids. It goes to no surprise. Our traffic collisions, just for reference, our stats are a little bit different than what the sheriffs have because they don't cover Highway 29. That will be CHP. So his numbers won't reflect ours. We capture right here at Madison and California too. So we do go to a couple wrecks in this mile stretch that are actually here in the town that they would not show on their stats. So just for reference for you. Next slide. Out of the calls for the Vets Home, we throw this in there, but it goes no surprise that the majority of the calls there are medical calls. Although they did get 1 fire call. So it was a smoking, an ashtray caught on fire outside. So very minor fire, but they did get 1 and you guys had none. So that's great.
You were there.
Next slide. We'd like to throw in a bunch of pictures because pictures are worth 1,000 words. Everyone loves fire trucks and firemen. So on the left picture is just north of town. At the park, the guys will do pass-throughs on weekends, and they'll see kids out there, so they'll stop and chat with them, let them take a look at the fire engine. So it was a nice warm day, so we let them spray some water. And then on the picture on the right is from local campers. They called the firehouse and wanted to schedule a firehouse tour. So they brought a dozen kids or so out to the firehouse to check out the fire station, see where we live, check out the fire engines, all of our equipment, dress up, and play around and be a firefighter for the day. Next slide. This is, I'm not sure if you're all aware of it, but there's a fire break that's being built up here just above the Vets Home. So it's about a mile stretch north to south, just above the Vets Home on the west side. The crew's been going out there working for the last couple months and doing anything from clearing down fire breaks to making it bare dirt to shaded fuel breaks to clearing vegetation and thinning the area. So there's a picture on the left that shows where it's actually at, and the one on the right is the crew's actually doing it. And that's our firefighter hand crew from Hood Mountain just over the hill in Kenwood. They were coming up to assist. We've recently been reached out, multiple wineries have been reaching out to us asking for our assistance in fire extinguisher training. So this is a picture of crews that went out. We do a bunch of different things from look at their site safety plan to help them come up with an evacuation plan as well. So us providing training to them. We did multiple this quarter. This is our technical rescue team. It's interagency, so it's Napa City, American Canyon, and us, and Napa County Fire. This is the old Zaire building just south of town off Solano. They donated that. I don't know if you saw us out there beating up on that structure for a little while, but that training on the left is guys doing shoring. So simulated incident of like an earthquake where the structure shifts and it's unstable. So guys will have to go in and they'll secure the doors and windows and the siding itself and secure the structure to be able to make entry into it, and just so it doesn't cause more damage or hurt anybody. And then the picture on the right is another drill, just doing an aerial pick with the ladder truck, obviously truck 12 that you see driving around all the time. So just staying up on their skills and training. Picture on the left is the Zaire building as well. So it's not very often we actually get a structure we get to train on and beat up. It's different cutting on a real roof versus our training simulated roof of the training grounds off of Silverado Trail. That's just a sheet of plywood. This is actually going through multiple layers and more realistic. So that's us doing ventilation training. And then the picture on the right is the ladder truck down by the airport doing training. So with our additional staffing that we've gotten this year, we're trying to get a bunch more people trained to actually drive and operate the truck itself. So we try and go down there on weekends so we don't cause too much distraction to the people down there. It's pretty deserted down by the airport on the weekends. So the guys will go to multiple buildings and set up for position and put the ladder up and drive around, and very good training down there, out of the way, and getting the guys up and trained. And that's the last slide that I have, but the tip of this quarter I'd like to give out to everyone is we just did daylight savings time, set our clocks back, so CAL FIRE likes to remind people that that's a great time of year to swap out your smoke detector batteries. Smoke detectors save lives, as well as do early detection for us, and it's a lot easier to put out a small fire than it is to put out a big one. So great time to change the batteries in the smoke detectors.
Thank you very much, Chief West. And is the rumor true that Santa might be coming on a fire truck on the 19th? Or?
I believe so.
Oh, the rumor is true. All right. Well, it's just going to stay within this room then until we see it happen.
Might be around.
It might be around. Great. A couple of questions. Councilmember McKee-Kent.
Thank you. No question, but I want to thank your staff just for the fire extinguisher training that they provided for the last two of our emergency preparedness. I know we didn't have a ton of people. You know, one was 100 degrees hot, but mostly the women that were in attendance were talking about it. I mean, through the community, I've heard that they got a lot out of it, and they're telling their neighbors. So, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Councilmember Tripp.
I just wanted to ask you. Never say never, but it looks like we got through fire season, at least in Napa County, relatively unscathed. What do experts like you put that up to? Luck or weather, or
a little bit of everything. Weather plays a huge component in it. Fortunately, we didn't have any big wind events come through that we've experienced in the past. We've actually had rain come through now, which is good, and we're actually starting to make the transition. I wouldn't say out of fire season, but the fire danger is definitely going down. CAL FIRE starting the down staffing portion of our fire season, which is year round, right? So we're starting to lay off our peak staffing levels of personnel. We'll be starting that next week on the 13th. So we've turned the corner on it, but we're always in fire season, so always be careful. We're not shutting all of our stations down. It's just the fire danger itself is peaked and it's starting to go down at this point.
so we can hopefully relax a little, homeowners. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your great quarterly report. Appreciate it. And our third guest presentation I see them huddled over here on my right. We have the Yountville Art Commission biannual report.
Getting Jeffrey up there.
Are we going to split it up, or the dynamic trio, a little bit of each? All right.
Well, I thank you, first of all, for having us here today. I hope you had a chance to go through our report. Before the meeting, I was going through it, and I thought I had my highlighter handy, and I thought, I'm just going to highlight a few points. But the truth is, the whole report is a highlight. It really is. We work really hard. You, of course, know Vice Chair Cynthia Caption. You may know our literary chair, Jeffrey Lay, and we're here to answer any questions you might have based on the report we've given you or anything else.
Okay, great. Well, I'm sure everybody read every word of the report, so very succinct. Thank you very much with that. So first I'll see if we have any questions from the council. Then I've got Vice Mayor Knight.
Thank you. Thank you for your report. I just know from just talking to some of the veterans and Donna Shafford up at the arts the arts center up at the Vets Home, that they have a lot of art there. Do you have an opportunity to communicate with them in terms of maybe being able to show some of their work, or has that become a? I just want to encourage you maybe to do that, to talk to them. They have work that if there was times for you to somehow plan to include them in the Steve Rogers Art Gallery, that would be great too. They've had a couple events this year, but.
Well, first of all, we did in the past. We had a major show. I don't remember how many years ago it was, but it's an amazing facility that they have up there, and we've always welcomed participation. There were some challenges at the time, and it just never worked out to do it again. But we have done that again. Now, yesterday at our Yountville Arts Commission meeting, Brad came and introduced an idea for us to add a sculpture from that facility, from the vets, to our art walk, which I don't know, Brad, if you want to talk about that as well. And we also discussed another gallery show. So we are willing, we are happy. I think part of it is not knowing how to make the inroads, but Brad seems to be alert and aware of some of those inroads. So tell us what we can do and when.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate you have, and I just and coming out of COVID, it's been challenging and so I just think it's just such a great art center up there, and they have some works there and resident artists that whatever you can do, I think the whole community benefits. So, but thank you for all that you do for the community. So, thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to add that since Joshua's in the in the audience as well, that when I've had 2 tours, but one of the tours where I got to see the art center, I got to meet a number of the vets and see some of the sculptures they're creating up there. And then it was actually through Sam and John that they made me aware that we uncovered a pad at the Veterans Park. So it was sort of an obvious sort of 2 and 2 meeting those together. But working with Joshua and then I believe last night they sort of identified the Art Sip and Stroll committee to help facilitate the piece. So we're working through that. Yeah, I was hoping, I guess we're talking about it now. I was hoping to make some announcement for Veterans Day this week. Whether we can do that formally or not, I'm not sure. But clearly this is an early success, as I was calling it, with Lindsay Sin, the new Secretary of Veteran Affairs. And I think the more we can do those types of things, the more bridges we build. And you talked about the Christmas lights earlier. All of those things, I think, get us back to a place where we can, be part. The Vets Home can be part of the town. I know that's the history. So I appreciate your openness to the idea, and that the team, John, Sam, and Joshua, all sort of working together. So I think this is hopefully an easy one. I'd be interested in hearing about the challenges of the past, but clearly that's a bright spot up at the Vets Home, so we should make sure it comes down into the town.
Thank you.
So we agreed to work together, and Brad's going to let us know when and what we can do when.
Yeah, and I said the same thing to Joshua, so he's working on it today, and we'll see when we can announce something specific.
Sounds exciting. Well, thank you guys for everything you do. I keep seeing stuff about Napa art. I'm not going to say repeat any of the negativity that I hear down there, but when they are being negative, they talk about how wonderful it's going up here in Yountville. So congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Councilmember McKee, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for the fun and engaging activity with the Scarecrow contest. I know you've got the Christmas tree one coming up, but to hear people talk about it, you inspired some awe and inspiration, which is exactly our mission. So right on, you guys. Good job.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. And with that, we have no public hearings tonight, and we have one administrative item. I think this is going to be really looking forward to this. I'll just turn it over to Director John Ferns to kind of get us going before I start in. So, John.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and council members. I am John Ferns, your Public Works Director, and this afternoon I'll be providing an update on the recent boil water notice incident that we had, as well as discuss a proposed resolution to adopt a JPA for shared services between the town, Calvet, and the city of Napa. This is not as exciting as police, fire, or arts, so bear with me. Thank you. Next slide, please. So as the town council, our town residents, and our town businesses are well aware, our wholesaler who provides water to us twice recently issued boil water notices to us, the town, as their retailer. So the wholesaler, we'll get into the details of what triggers a boil water notice, but essentially I'm just introducing the subject that we had a boil water notice in July that was a bit of a surprise to us, and we managed it fairly well as a group, and we appreciate everybody's understanding. And then we had another one in October, which obviously increased everybody's concern. They were actually 3 months to the day apart. That's pure coincidence, but it was just an odd coincidence. Next slide, please. So when our wholesaler, Calvet, tells us to issues a boil water notice to us as their customer, the town, as the retailer of that water, is obligated to then subsequently issue a boil water notice to our customers. So I think one of the themes that we've had through these two incidences is how to explain our relationship with Calvet. And what I came up with today makes sense to me. I don't know if it'll make sense to the group, but essentially Calvet is a produce supplier who's selling the town lettuce, and they had a bad batch of lettuce. So they told us, hey, your lettuce is this batch of lettuce that we sent to you is bad. So we, as the grocery store, have to let all of our customer know the lettuce is bad, don't buy it, and bring it back. So it's a similar situation. We buy a product from a wholesaler, we're the retailer, and we're selling it. So in that instance, when we get notified by our wholesaler, we're obligated to follow up with our customers. Next slide, please. So the question then becomes, how does this work, and how do we prevent it from happening again? So both entities, Calvet and the town of Yountville, operate under permits from the State Water Resources Control Board, Division of Drinking Water. So each of those two agencies have a permit with the bigger state agency. Calvet has a permit to supply the water and distribute it. The town has a permit to only distribute the water. So we don't have a source of supply, and we don't manage a water treatment plant to treat that water. So two separate entities governed by a third entity, all working within rules to ensure that the water is safe to drink. Next slide, please. So stepping back a little bit just to explain that relationship, I borrowed this slide from our water conservation days, but it's a reminder that Rector Reservoir and Rector Water Treatment Plant are Calvet's water supply located over on Silverado Trail, and the water comes to town via a pipe system that we'll see in a moment. Ignore my was 500 and now 400 acre feet. That's left over from our water conservation days, but we are back in our contract status of 500 acre feet being delivered to us. Next slide, please. So this one was hard to draw because it's such a big footprint, but if you picture the Napa Valley, and on the east side of Silverado Trail, north of Yountville Cross Road, is Rector Reservoir and Rector Water Treatment Plant. So that's where Calvet operates, collects the surface water, treats it, puts it in a pipe. It crosses over Silverado Trail, passes through the Department of Fish and Game property, and then comes down to Yountville Cross Road. And then once it's in Yountville Cross Road, their pipe continues to Fennell, makes the 90-degree to Fennell, follows Fennell up to Yount Street, and then continues out to Washington. And as we all well know from last year and the year before, their transmission main is in Washington Street as it makes its way to California and then up to the Vets Home campus. So along that line, the town has 3 connections to get our water from them. So the first connection is an incidental one out by what I call State Lane. It's roughly a geographical location on intersection on Yountville Cross Road. It's not exactly there, but that gives you an idea where it is. That's our connection to their system to provide water to our out-of-town customers. So just a reminder, we have 30 out-of-town customers located over on Silverado Trail in that vicinity. So that's how they get their water from us through the state. Our 2 main connections, the first one is located at Fennell and Yountville Cross Road. And if next time you're driving out there at the southeast corner, there's a big cage with a bunch of pipes inside of it. That big cage with those pipes inside of it is our connection to their system. Our other main connection that we use and get most of our water from is the same big cage with the same pipes in it located in our parking lot right here at the corner of Yount and Fennell. You don't see it because it's landscaped fairly well, but it's there, and it's where most of our water comes through. And so we take water, it's metered from those locations, and that's how we get our water from our wholesaler. And then on the flip side, their pipe continues up to their campus, and they manage their own distribution on the Vets Home campus. Next slide, please. So what I just described, those are the two locations, Yountville Crossroad at Fennell. You can see it on the left. That's actually a pretty new installation. It used to be in the middle of the road, and we'd have to close the road to access it. And just prior to me arriving here, that project had just been completed where they took the vault out of the road and put it in a more logical location. And the other one was redone at the same time, but it's landscaped and you can't see it in that view. Next slide, please. So now we're getting into, that's kind of a background just to give everybody a general knowledge of how our two systems are connected, where we get our water from. So now I'm getting into really kind of the beginning of the nuts and bolts of the boil water discussion. So Calvet operationally operates Rector Treatment Plant and then a distribution system at Veterans Home. Under the terms of their permit, they're required to do testing just like we are under the terms of our permit. For supply and distribution, they're doing constant monitoring of chlorine residuals at the treatment plant. And then they do weekly total and fecal coliform testing at 4 locations on their system. One at the treatment plant, one that we refer to as the 10-inch main at the museum. So it's a pipe with an outlet located where Napa Valley Museum is. So when I say Napa Valley Museum site, we're just referring to a testing site there. And then 2 other sites on campus, the main kitchen and their hydro station. And so those are the tests that trigger these notices. So fecal coliform is essentially, to oversimplify, germs growing in the water sample. And so we're testing for germs growing in the water supply. We'll get to the sample part in a moment. They do monthly raw water samples from the surface water, so that's before it gets into the treatment plant. So they do coliform testing on the surface water itself monthly, and then quarterly they're required to do tests for disinfection byproducts. So the treatment process introduces things into the water, and then we have to maintain those things at a certain level. Those are the disinfection byproducts, and they have to stay below certain levels for the water to remain safe. Next slide, please. So from the town perspective, we don't have that whole supply component, but we do have the distribution component, which is permitted. And we have Nick Hickman, our distribution operator, sitting in the back right now. He's the main man that takes care of all of this, and we thank him very much daily, but we thank him even more during these times of boil water notices. He's working overtime at night, making sure everything's safe for everybody. So he's the one that's taking these samples that I'm describing now. He does it weekly at various locations in the town for chlorine residuals, and I'll touch on chlorine residuals in a moment. And then monthly at 3 locations that cover our system, Larkspur, Monroe, and Yountville Crossroad. We are doing our total fecal and coliform sampling there. That's similar to what Calvet does weekly. We do ours monthly. We'll talk about shifting that schedule going forward. And then we also voluntarily do a monthly general physical sample that just tests the water for turbidity, which is the cloudiness, and the general physical properties of the water, just to make sure that everything's fine with what we're distributing. And then just like Calvet, we're required to do quarterly testing for disinfection byproducts. And we do have our own raw water well that we do test for this. We do have to do quarterly sampling from there too. We haven't been using the well, and the well water hasn't been introduced to the system, but we do test that water regularly to make sure it's safe if we do need to introduce it to the system. Next slide, please. So getting into this whole idea of the sampling. So the samples that everybody's interested in that we need to talk about test for total and fecal coliform. Each test takes 24 hours. So an operator goes out and takes a sample. That sample goes to a lab, and the lab performs a test on it. It takes 24 hours for them to grow the germs. Again, I'm oversimplifying the germs in the test, in the sample, to determine if it is positive for E. coli. So a positive test in that circumstance indicates that the presence of E. coli is in the water sample. The warning there is it's in the sample. It may be in the water supply, but we know it's in the sample. So there's a distinction there. Knowing that it's in the sample the agency, so Calvet in this circumstance, is triggered to report it to the Division of Drinking Water. That's the group, the state agency that regulates our permits. They're also immediately required to go out and take subsequent samples at the same locations to determine if the issue was with the sample or if the water supply. And then the Division of Drinking Water takes the available data that they have at that time and orders the agency to issue a boil water notice or not if the data supports not issuing a boil water notice. And so once that boil water notice is issued, you've heard us talk about the 2 negative tests in our press releases and things like that. That's what it takes to get it removed, is we have to take 2 subsequent samples, which take 24 hours each, in order to determine if the water is safe. Is there a sample in the water? Is the E. coli in the water, or was it in the sample? Unfortunately for us, on both circumstances, the boil water notice was issued on a Thursday night or a Friday. So not that it makes it any easier to be on the weekend. 2 days of boiling water is difficult for everybody, but in these 2 circumstances, it just happened to be that it happened to be on the weekend, which is, I would say, is probably more inconvenient than during the week, but I'm not a business operator who would disagree with that. And so in both circumstances, when we get a notification from Calvet that they have a positive test, we immediately go out and start testing our water too. So our tests are being conducted parallel with them. Now, bringing in the idea of the chlorine residual. In order to have potable water come to your tap, it's required to have a chlorine residual. That's what disinfects it and ensures that the E. coli is not in the water. So there's a specified range from 0.2 to 4 parts per million that's required to be in that drinking water. Calvet and the town generally run around 1 or a little bit higher than 1, because you don't want to have that extreme 4 parts per million where it smells like chlorine, but you want to keep the disinfection up. So if the water plant and the systems are operating in that range, it greatly reduces the chance of the fecal coliform of being in the water supply itself. That doesn't mean it wasn't in that sample and wasn't introduced to that sample on the way to the lab. So, and a thing to know, and some of the questions that we had is how come we were able to relieve these so fast, and what happened is that both instances that we just experienced, our chlorine residuals were high and within the range that they were supposed to be. So it makes it more believable that the E. coli was not in the water, it was in the sample. Next slide, please. So given all of this information and knowing that town staff, town council, our residents, and our businesses want to greatly reduce the frequency of these, if we can reduce them to nothing, we are proposing to make changes to the processes in order to try to improve our track record and help Calvet get to a place where we're not experiencing these boil water notices. So that proposal is a shared services agreement that will have the town partner with the city of Napa. City of Napa is the biggest water supplier in the Napa Valley. They have the most facilities, and they have a certified lab at their Jameson Canyon water treatment plant. And so what we're proposing is that we, the town, enter into an agreement with Calvet and the city of Napa to take our samples to the city of Napa's certified lab and take the private lab out of the equation. The city of Napa will then provide the certified lab and the technicians to run those tests. And conversationally, they're working on the details of the scheduling, but we haven't worked out that a schedule will work for both the Calvet samples and the town samples. The other piece that we want to do in order to help provide a bigger data stream for the Division of Drinking Water to make decisions about these things is, and part of the agreement will be, Calvet says, you, the town, Nick, our sampler, can go to 2 of their locations, one upstream and one downstream from our system, and take samples and run them to the City of Napa lab with our regular samples. And the purpose of that is if we're taking samples at 2 locations that Calvet is taking samples, and all of our samples are negative, then everything's good. If Calvet were to come back with a positive sample and we were to come back with a negative sample, it's extra information that the Division of Drinking Water can use in order to make a determination about the need for a boil water notice. So we're not taking on the responsibility of sampling for the regulatory permit for Calvet. We're just taking informational samples in parallel with Calvet samples. Next slide, please. The other thing that the town can do, independent of everybody else, that will help, again, provide a data stream and information that will be helpful to the Division of Drinking Water, is to provide a continuous chlorine monitoring station at our primary connection to their system. And that goes back to the idea that we talked about earlier, where if the chlorine residual is within the acceptable range, it indicates that it's likely that E. coli is not in the water. And so what we can do at this site here is put continuous chlorine monitoring equipment on our connection to there. This site lends itself to that because we need power for that equipment and we need a disposal for that water that gets tested continuously. It's not a large volume of water, but it has to go somewhere. So we're independent of all this. We're proposing to move forward with that piece of it so we can have that information to use both for ourselves and to provide to Division of Drinking Water moving forward. Next slide, please. So the mechanism that we can use to do this with 3 public agencies is the Joint Exercise of Powers Act, and it allows us to enter into agreements with the other 2 agencies for things that are common to the 3 of us that we do. And so the commonality is we all deliver water to our customers. And so what we're proposing in this resolution before you today is a JPA, a Joint Powers Agreement, not a Joint Powers Authority, but a Joint Powers Agreement for shared water sampling and certified testing lab services as described. So both Calvet and the town will be taking water samples to the City of Napa lab, and the City of Napa will be acting as our lab, and we will have permission to access 2 of Calvet's sites to take water samples in partner with Calvet. The Joint Powers Agreement does not create a new agency or entity, and it doesn't require a board. It's just an agreement that gets administered. It needs to be approved by Town Council, the City of Napa Council, and Calvet. We're first in line for that, so we've drafted the agreement. We have draft versions at City of Napa and also at the state being reviewed by both of them. The City of Napa doesn't meet again, City Council, City of Napa doesn't meet again until December 5th, and so that's when they'll be considering this item. And then we're also working with the state, who doesn't have the same type of board, to try to get their approval. So the proposal before you is a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign that agreement and giving our town manager the ability to make adjustments to the agreement as needed to accommodate the City of Napa and the state as they're reviewing the draft. Next slide, please. And with that, I think my next slide is introducing. We do have Zachary Rounds, our person who works for the Division of Drinking Water, who's going to zoom in. But before we introduce him, I do want to give the microphone to Josh, our Calvet PIO, and let him make a statement, and then we'll bring Zach Rounds on for his statement.
Thank you all. My statement is pretty basic compared to what John just presented. That was very impressive. So, and it really just has to do with a lot of what he just said. He articulated way better than I could. But I'll go ahead and read the statement. Calvet and Rector Reservoir is, of course, dedicated to ensuring the Veterans Home and the town that everyone receives top-notch drinking water. In pursuit of this goal, we diligently operate the state-of-the-art filtration water treatment plant that consistently delivers exceptional water quality. Regarding the most recent boil water notice, water samples, as John mentioned, were collected from Rector and the Yountville home on the standard testing basis, with unfortunately a positive E. coli result. This marked the second case of this in the last 3 months, July and then October. But when individual tests indicated the presence of E. coli, they then, subsequent tests did not over the following few days, as we're all aware. And so kind of finding that balance of what is going on with that test versus these subsequent tests showing no E. coli. So with that no trace of bacteria on those subsequent tests, we maintain our belief that that these test results were false positives. So we place immense importance, can't stress that enough, on the quality of water we supply, and we take pride in the outstanding product that our Rector team provides to all of us and has for a number of years. So, and to the home, of course, and to the town of Yountville. So that's kind of that at the moment. We understand what everyone's going through. We're, of course, going through it as well. And then regarding the JPA, we're always looking to better build our ties and connections with the town. So I'll kind of leave that up to, I'm not in those talks, so I'll leave that up to Brad and John and the powers that be. So that's all from us at the moment.
Thank you, Josh.
Great. Thank you all.
Our first zoom in of a guest speaker.
It's new.
And there he is.
He's on mute. Or we're on mute.
Zachary, we believe that you may be muted.
Try again. I just heard. Say something.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Louder.
We can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. My name is Zach Rounds. I'm with the State Water Resources Control Board, Division of Drinking Water, the Mendocino District, which oversees, I think from the maps shown, Lake Mendocino and Napa counties. Director Ferens covered a lot and really did more than, I think said most of what I would say. Did a great job. And, from our perspective, we're open and planning to work with the Veterans Home and the town of Yountville to work to help review and support Veterans Home with their sampling practices and sample locations, and work with the town of Yountville and Veterans Home to better, with any sort of agreements made in terms of sampling, in the hopes that additional data will support any future actions. That was my statement. I'm sorry.
So, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Are you planning on just kind of seeing how this goes? Are you going to be doing some audits in the near future, or do you have any specific plans from your agency that you'd like to comment on?
We are planning on working, as I mentioned, working with Veterans Home to review their sampling practices and sample locations to ensure that to help narrow down possible avenues of the positive results.
And so just that the City of Napa's lab has certification, is that sufficient for your agency to allow us to send our samples there?
Yes. Our requirement is that any water quality samples for compliance purposes, and informational as well. Informational a little bit different, but for compliance purposes, come from a lab that is accredited by our agency called ELAP, which is part of the Resources Control Board. And as long as the City of Napa's Jameson lab is accredited for the type of samples proposed, then we are fine with it.
All right, great. We have some questions from some other council members. If you could hold on, Councilmember Tripp.
I wanted, and I apologize, I didn't catch your last name, Zach, but I wanted to ask you on this idea of chlorine levels. Again, I don't have any scientific background other than to know that chlorine is a good disinfectant. Is there a regulatory basis to say that if the chlorine levels hit a certain point, that would obviate any issues related to E. coli? In other words, if you hit a certain level of chlorine, is the E. coli result sort of moot? I guess that's my question.
From a regulatory perspective, no. As Director Ferens was referring to with installing continuous monitoring, it does provide more data when an incident like this occurs in terms of our decision-making process. I would hesitantly say from a scientific basis, if the residual is extremely high, that would make a positive sample result more confusing, I suppose, would be the way to think of it. But there are no regulatory guarantees on that.
And then my other question is, and you alluded to this, that you do go through a decision-making process. Is that correct, that you look at all the information that's been submitted as a result of these samples and then you issue a boil water notice? Or is it more of a self-reporting that the entity knows when they hit certain levels they're going to have to issue a boil water notice? I guess what I'm trying to say, is it up to you to do that and look at all the factors?
Either is an option. Many water systems will bring positive results to us as soon as they receive them and ask for guidance or decision making on that front. Water systems are able, I believe, I had to check I apologize, they don't have the regulations memorized at that level. But typically water systems will self-issue boil water notices if they have results that indicate an obvious failure. A common example would be loss of pressure due to like a main break. The water system knows those happen far past, as soon as they happen, and will often issue a boil water notice to the customers impacted by that main break and the subsequent loss of pressure, and then inform us of what they have done, and we take steps on our end to sort of further establish the boil water notice.
And in this particular case, you then actually directed the town and the water treater, the vet's home, to issue these notices? Or was it more, so that's my basic question. Did you or your department or some other part of the state, whether it's the Water Quality Board, actually issue a notice to boil water, or tell us we had to?
I believe in this most recent incident, it was communication from the veterans home to us that indicated that due to the sample results, that a boil water notice was necessary. Okay. And then because Yountville that due to the sample locations, we had caution Yountville was brought into the boil water notice.
Okay, and thank you. And thank you for being available today. I know that may not be part of your routine, or it may not be required, so thank you very much. And then I just wanted to ask the mayor, I had a question or two for John. Should I wait, or go ahead?
Let me call on Vice Mayor Knight, has his light on. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Rounds, for zooming in with us today. So my first question is, could you tell us what is your regular review process for water treatments? Do you have a regular plan of every couple years checking in with agencies? And then second, have you maybe because of the recent incidents happening within a very few months apart, will you do additional review? And how does that change your regular review process?
So for a water system like the Veterans Home, because they're and I apologize if John already covered this, they have what we call surface water treatment. They receive water from the Rector Reservoir and move it through their treatment plant. All water systems that use surface water are required to submit a monthly performance report of how their surface water treatment plant is operating, ensuring that it is meeting various performance standards that are established in regulations and our permitting process. So we do review that on a monthly basis. We also do receive all of the bacteriological sampling and review that on a monthly basis. With regards to so to speak, what we call our sanitary surveys or inspections, those happen. It depends on the type of water system. And I believe for Veterans Home, they are typically on a 3-year cycle. And I'd have to check our calendar to see when the next one would be. But with regards to this, as I mentioned, we're going to work with them on their sample locations, sampling practices to identify if there are any areas there that could be adjusted on the off chance that's one of the causes of the detections. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Mayor. Just last. So you generally have a process where if incidents occur within a short period of time, that you have a process where you do some type of root cause or analysis or forensic analysis to try to determine. I mean, if it's beyond just sampling or sampling error. Or...
I have to kind of say that depends. It's not a great answer. It largely depends on the nature of what is occurring, and we tend to more likely direct a water system to perform an investigation and then to give us the results of that investigation. That's more frequent.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again.
So that's all the questions we have from Council. John, did you want to ask any more questions of the? Okay, so I know you want to talk to John. All right, so are you going to have him stay on, or we're going to excuse him, or what would you like, John?
I think we're good. Zach, thank you very much for participating. We appreciate it very much.
Yes, thank you very much for helping us out.
Thank you.
Okay, so back to John. We haven't been able to ask any questions of Director Ferns. Great presentation. So I'll come back with some general comments, but Councilmember Tripp.
Yes, thank you for the great presentation, and also I really want to thank you and Town Manager for turning this around so quickly, and the JPA idea. I think that's really a great idea. So, but I might have misunderstood when you were speaking about the main junction, which is right out here where the town receives the water. Did you say the water goes through that up to the vet's home after, or does it go on a whole separate track to the vet's home?
So there's a separate pipe that takes the water to the vet's home.
Okay.
There's a T from that pipe that brings water to our connection, and so our water comes through our meter and system right here and Fennell during what we call Fennell.
So all of our sampling only applies to water that's really being used by the town?
Yes.
Okay. And I wanted to ask you, I understand the water's being treated up at Rector. Is there any engineering or scientific reason why in between Rector and where we're doing our sampling, something could or would change in terms of the water results, either the E. coli or anything?
Just the situation that Zach described where the system is depressurized, but we would be aware of that. So under normal circumstances, when a pipe system is operating, it's operating, and ours, we receive the water. I believe they're around 100 pounds per square inch. We have also built into our system, we have pressure reducers. So we usually run around 70 pounds per square inch, and that's a solid, consistent pressure that exists in the pipes. And so it's virtually impossible for contaminants to be introduced into the system when that much pressure is in the system. So if anything opens up that would allow germs to enter the system, the water's evacuating faster than the germs can go in. But once it's depressurized, then we have to react, but we always are aware when that happens.
Well, in an event of a depressuring, I would think you would see contamination. In other words, we would see, possibly you could see results that were different from the water treater, but it would be to the negative, right?
Yes.
Because as a result of depressuring,
yes,
you could get some infiltration or something along those lines,
correct,
right? So that wouldn't really cover the mismatch that we're seeing.
Correct.
Okay. And then I have one other just really quick question. I want to just say, when you say this is not as important as fire and police, I would actually say it's equally important in terms of people's health and, of course, the impact on the businesses. But if I remember during the drought, we got water from the city of Napa, which was very expensive, as I remember you told us. And I'm not suggesting this, but if we were to get our water from the city of Napa, would we no longer... They would be responsible from beginning to end. Is that correct? Or maybe you don't know. In other words, it wouldn't be the wholesaler versus, it wouldn't be the lettuce grower and the market. It would just be one channel.
In the scenario where we were a City of Napa water customer, it would be a similar scenario to what we are now with Calvet.
Oh, we'd still do testing and all that?
So we would be required to do the testing of our system, our distribution system, because we are permitted to operate that distribution system.
So even if it came from the City of Napa, do you think we could get out of that permit, possibly? Because it does seem duplicative.
City of Napa would have to take over operation of both the water supply and the distribution system and own and operate the permit on behalf of the town in order to alleviate the town of our obligation there.
Okay, those were my questions. And again, I really do want to thank you. You and Brad did a great job, and I'm sure others were involved too. Hillary.
Vice Mayor Knight.
Thank you, Director Ferns, for a great report, especially on this as complicated as it is. It's thank you for a very understandable report. Have a good water supply and a good partner with the Vets Home and Calvet, because we don't have to worry like other cities about Sierra snow melt, and we've been there buying water from the city of Napa in the past, and it's a very expensive proposition. So I know some people, we went through this, says, are there other water sources? We have an excellent water source. But what we understand, what's important, is that it's been reliable, but we need to be sure for the members of the Vets Home, for the residents, and for our hospitality, for the hotels and restaurants, reliability is just very, very important. So, thank you for the work you're doing on this. I think this JPA will help create the stability, and it's a great opportunity for us to work more with the Vets Home, with the city of Napa. I'm curious just on a couple quick questions. So, and it's more kind of learning how this process works. Is from the Vets Home water treatment, I know they send raw water, like to Fish and Game. They still, I was talking to someone recently just today that worked out at the Vets Home fish ponds where they took Rector water and they grow fish and they distribute it to reservoirs and lakes around the Northern California. But is there a point where from Rector treatment plant that we have common water, and then at some point, from Fennell then up to Yount, it splits and there's a pipe to the Vets Home, and then it enters, and then it becomes Town of Water, or is it separate all the way from the water treatment plant?
It's a single pipe from the water treatment plant. So the raw water, there's two pieces there. The Rector supplies raw water to the fish hatchery at the Fish and Game property.
And that's a separate pipe.
And that's separate. That's just raw water from the lake behind the reservoir. That's not treated water. So the treated water, the water from the reservoir goes through the treatment plant, and it enters, there's a water tank on the Rector property. So the clean water goes to that water tank, and that water tank pushes the water in a single pipe through over to the Vets Home, where they have another tank where the water pushes from that tank to that tank. That tank on the Vets Home campus is what supplies the Vets Home system with water. And in between the two, on that 14-inch pipe that runs through town, we have two T's on that connect at Fennell and Fennell, either end of Fennell really, that is our connection to their pipe.
Okay, that's fine. So we're running off, in essence, there's a one main pipe, and then we tee off it for the city.
Yes.
And so
excuse me for interrupting. The
That's right.
challenge in this most recent one. So, if Calvet gets a positive test result on campus only, it doesn't affect us because it's downstream from our system.
Okay.
And so in this recent October instance, well, in both instances, but in the October instance, they received a positive test result at Rector, which is upstream from our system. So the water over there tested positive, or the sample tested positive, and it was coming our way. And then they also got positive samples on campus. So that told the Division of Drinking Water, hey, there's potential for contaminated water in the pipe that runs everywhere, and the town's connected to that pipe, so we could potentially have contaminated water.
Well, thank you. That's clear. So, so it's the reality that at the origin, when you get a positive test, then it's affecting everybody.
Yes.
On the like you said, on the other end. So, my last question is, up to now, does the town and does the Vets Home have you used separate testing facilities? Because it seems it gets down to the point of sampling and the testing, where when they got positive ones and the town got negative, were you going to two different places with your water samples?
No, we've been all using a private lab. We're both agencies were using a private lab, and the samples were all going to that same lab.
Okay.
And so now we're taking the private lab out of the equation, and we're going to the City of Napa lab instead.
So that's what I just kind of wanted to summarize, that the strategy that we really have developed here, which is that with this third-party lab that both the Veterans Home and we have been using, there's been some strange communications, I'll probably leave it at that we didn't fully understand about, other people were getting positives, or, I think we're going to, change how we do the test. And there was just a lot of kind of confusion and uncertainty about that lab. So part of the strategy was take them out of the equation. Let's put it in the City of Napa. They don't really have this problem. They've never really had that. And, it's also close. It's another agency. It might be just a little bit of, they're like us. We kind of get them. It's not a third-party commercial lab. So that was one of the strategies. The third-party lab is gone, and we're all going with City of Napa, where we have a lot of trust, and we can go down, and we probably will go down and check out all their tests and satisfy me in terms of how just every little thing is done. Then the other strategy was to put the redundancy in terms of the testing, that instead of here are the Calvet samples and here are the town samples, for the right reasons, because of where the water is going, but we've added the redundancy in so that when we really put all that data together, and when it goes out at the same time, if there's a difference, if you've got something positive and something's negative, you don't know. You can't just pick the one you want, because you don't really know if one's a false positive and one's a false negative. But it does give a more preponderance of the data, and together with the chlorine, and I think, what the other water agency guy was kind of talking about when the question kind of came up with the chlorine, he couldn't really say for certain, because the chlorine is in a chlorine sample. It's a different bottle. It's taken a different time, and it's processed differently, and you can't really measure the chlorine in the E. coli or the chloroform sample, because that's treated differently. It's got another treatment. It's got something in the bottle that kind of prevents further chlorine degradation for the chlorine products. But that does kind of put a picture together. So that's really the strategy going forward, and I think it's a good one, and we shall see. So thank you very much, and it's really, I think, just a matter of time. I think we're having positive information from all the agencies. I think there's probably little tweaks of some sentences. I'm sure some legal beagles will get involved on both ends and have a little conversation about a few things. But I think this is going to be able to move forward pretty quickly, maybe before the end of the year, if not very early in 2025. So all of our water customers should feel like we've spent a lot of time on this, and lots of review, lots of discussion, and I think we've got a really good plan here. So really thankful all of our partners are on board. So, and very much appreciate Nick. Thank you very much for all the getting peppered with all my questions, and you always had the answer right there. And John, I think you did a great job, because this is important for our community. That it wasn't that we really listened; we wanted to get this solved, and I think we have a solution here that should stand the test of time. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
You going to take public comment?
I wanted to.
Yes. Can I do public comment, and then I'll come right back? Any public comment on this item? Seeing nobody moving, back to Councilmember Tripp.
Thank you. I just, of course, want to thank you and Nick for your, dealing with the issue on site, and then working with Brad to come up with the solution, like everybody else has said. I'm sorry that Whitney with the chamber just left, because I wanted to compliment the town on doing the best that they could with communication, because it's one thing to be in the field, it's another thing to be in the front lines, and I think you guys all took a lot of heat. And as we have this solution in place, once all the councils are able to vote on it, I hope we can come up with some kind of a nice little package, a little marketing piece that, especially for the businesses here that are suffering from some angry clientele. So we have something just as slick as the great plan you have in place that says we've addressed it head on, and the best minds were on it, and now we have the best water too. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. With that, administrative report, staff presentations and information reports.
Do we have to adopt the reso
Me
first?
too.
Oh, we have to adopt the reso. I was just like all excited that we have this plan. I totally forgot. So with that, I am going to ask if anybody would like to make a motion and a second, then we'll come back and debate for considering adoption of resolution 234236.
I will move that we put forward the resolution number 234236, approving and authorizing and directing the execution of a joint exercise powers agreement.
I'll second that.
All right, so let's bring it back for council discussion.
Mayor,
Vice Mayor Knight.
Thank you. Maybe a question for the town attorney. In the in the resolution, it talks about authorization to make modifications. I mean, it's important to have some flexibility there, but at what point do modifications become more than should be brought back to council for review? How do you kind of view that or see that in terms of I mean, we trust the town manager and the conversations we'll have with Calvet and the city of Napa, but is there a point when it comes back to the town or to the council?
Yes. So that authority would not allow staff to modify the fundamentals of what you approved tonight or this afternoon, including things like the parties and the basic scope of services and things like that. So what we are trying to account for is the possibility that the city of Napa will come back. There'll be some details that they need to add about the cost, for example, so we'll need to add that in. That needs to be included. And also Calvet may come back and ask for things like a term or a length of the agreement. We're expecting things like that to come back. But yes, staff has already discussed that, and this will not go in a completely different direction. And if it did, it would come back to you all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No gut and amended allowed. Councilmember Tripp.
I fully support this resolution, and again, it was turned around so quickly, the JPA, that I really appreciate that. That's pretty quick. But I do want to say that I do understand the long-standing relationship with the Vets Home, and I think it makes sense to treat this as a testing or sampling issue, and so we're addressing that. But I do have to say it's sort of, to me, a no-go at some point, that because of and Whitney's not here, but I can just imagine the impact on the businesses, and not to mention the residents. So whatever the issue is, at a certain point, one, I think we do need to consider if there was a possible that it really is a treatment issue, what Yountville might prudently do. And then also, whatever the reason is, I just don't think we could continue going on like this because it creates such a burden on the residents and the businesses. You can't have people paying $800 a night to come to our town, which we spend a lot of money to get them here, and then tell them you can't shower with your mouth open or drink the water. It's just, not to mention the restaurants. If I was in business, my head would explode because you know, you can't just ignore this because your customers could potentially get very ill. But on the other hand, the disruption involved in having to rewash all your produce and figure out, it's kind of mind-boggling, and I'm not even in the business. So I guess all I'm trying to say is I hope it's a testing problem and sampling problem. If it's not, I do think we need to really think about what would come next. And even if it was a testing and sampling issue, we cannot continue along this road. So that's my 2 cents, which isn't to take anything away from the current approach. But I guess in my business career, you always have to say, if it's happened twice, do we need to think about what we would do next? So I don't think we're there, but that's my 2 cents.
Vice Mayor Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. I think, Councilmember Tripp, I think we all, I definitely have those same feelings. But what I sense from this report is that we've got a good cooperation going with Calvet, and we'll hopefully have a good cooperation with Calvet in the city of Napa. But what I also heard, and maybe what I was asking Mr. Rounds with the Division of Water, of drinking water, that at some point, this is the first step to look at sampling and testing, but at some point beyond that, you have to do some type of forensic or root cause analysis. And I'm sure we didn't go into it as much, but I'm sure at some point when they go and they look at facilities, that has to be somewhat a part of their review process. And I'm confident in the work that, and with our Public Works Director Ferns, that those type of conversations will happen if something happened again. So, but it's definitely a concern, I'm sure, and you know, being in business, and well, I think we're lucky that we're able to resolve this, and maybe it is a sampling and testing area, because I remember back in July I was reading in one of the statewide newsletters that city up in the Sacramento Valley had issues for 2 or 3 weeks, and they struggled with solving the problem, and we seem to be able to tackle it and take care of it quickly here, even though it is a burden, I know, for residents, the members of the home, and our business community. So I support this, and I support this JPA. Thank you.
I also support it, and you know, sometimes I think that there can sometimes be finite things that can solve a problem, and there can be some problems that have so many moving parts that you just may never really know the answer. I think some simple things that the city of Napa is recommending, and I've been wondering about too, is maybe just having like a negative control. You know, so when you actually kind of take some of these samples, that you know, there's something in there that is actually, you don't take the actual water, you actually, you know, put in some sterile water that's purchased from an outside vendor, and if that comes up positive too, that tells you a lot. So there are going to be a lot of you know, little scientific kind of tweaking things kind of going on, and I'm certainly really looking forward to see the growth kill curves of the 0.4 to the 2 chlorine unit standard curve. So believe me, this is something that I am extremely familiar with. So I think that, you know, that these are like kind of the big steps, and there's little steps that, you know, are probably going to happen as we move through this new plan. But it's, you know, some of these things, you know, first of all, to me, it's virtually impossible to have something that's positive for E. coli, at these levels that you need a boil water notice, then all of a sudden when you take a sample the next day, poof, it's gone. It just doesn't disappear like that, especially when no one's even hardly using the water. You can't just flush something through the line. So there's a bit of just common sense about, what's really kind of going on here. And but, being able to prove something scientifically is totally different than, making some changes that will improve the overall result. And I really think we kind of have that too. And I think we should send that message. I certainly want to send it to our community, our businesses, that this is going to be a plan that will work, especially with our redundancies that we've really got put in place. And the city of Napa's, they've got a very clean lab. I can't know for certain, but they certainly don't have boil water notices like this, which say, there's E. coli in here. So it's not just chloroforms, because that's one thing. If you don't get any E. coli, it's a very separate part of all the chloroforms. So, I think that this is definitely going to solve the problem. And I want our community to feel assured, just like I feel assured now, that, we are going to have a clean, safe water system without these confounding results. I'll just kind of leave it at that. So, Councilmember Reeves.
I just wanted to thank staff for kind of coming up with a really thorough and doable plan for the problem in the moment. We don't know what the future holds, but I think that, as the mayor has stated, that this is a thorough approach, and that we will benefit from more testing, and that the community can be assured that the staff has gone above and beyond in a very quick response, and I think we will all be happy with this.
Nothing to add.
Okay, so with that, we will now vote. Eddie, we have a motion and a second, and we're all going to vote.
And the vote is now closed. It passed unanimously.
Thank you, everybody, very much. And thank you, Josh. Send positive thoughts our way up the hill. So, and thanks for your participation very much. Greatly appreciate it. Now we are ready for staff presentation informational reports. Do we have any?
Sam has a couple things to report.
All right. Sam always has fun things to report.
Always.
Always.
We're the fun people.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to give a little recap of the before-mentioned Scarecrow contest that wrapped up this weekend. We had 20 entries, which was fantastic. The two winners were Joel Bridegam with his Marley entry, which was on the surfboard, you may have seen, and then our knitting and crochet class entry, which was doing a cartwheel. So we had quite a few other honorable mentions, but I think for the first year it was really successful, and the community really enjoyed it, as well as visitors. And on that note, Yountville Arts is also sponsoring a holiday tree contest. So the press release on that came out earlier today. And so the community is invited to enter a decorated holiday tree that'll be around the perimeter of the community center after the tree lighting, not before, just because of logistics. But we're excited again to have that happening, and we're going to be instituting a kind of community voting process with QR codes so that the community gets to help pick the winner for that. So more on that to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha.
And I just wanted to add to that, especially since Nick's in the crowd, and obviously John's always here, but Public Works won for their Stormy Steve, is that what you call it? But it was just, for me, as the new guy, to see the camaraderie and competition and team building amongst the departments. It was great. So I was really happy to see how involved the staff got with the Scarecrows as well. And I'm figuring Sam picked them because they get a free breakfast, and that's I don't know. It's a lot of mouths to feed up there on the.
I didn't get to vote, so I didn't pick them.
Or whoever
I
picked
picked
them.
my own department. No, I'm kidding. But
That was the most costly prize. But enjoy your breakfast. Great job, everyone. And yeah, let's,
It's
I guess,
nice
on to the
to
trees.
see people go into the courtyard that were walking by. They'd be like, well, what is down there? And so it was inviting. It was good.
Yeah, the other thing I just wanted to point out, if you haven't seen behind us, the staff did a really great job of, it's a Blue Zone project that a number of people spearheaded, but we have a little side yard that we created that's really a place for the staff to go and unwind and have lunch and take breaks. So that was great, and we're going to be announcing kind of, I think in the next week or so, John, with the process for the front yard in terms of having some community involvement. But if you haven't had a chance to look out the back door in the side yard, I encourage you to do it. John and his team did a great job putting that together.
Town manager, I thought that was the dog park over there. Kidding. Little joke. It's
French
beautiful.
doors here to go out to the courtyard.
Yeah, I know it's on your mind tonight.
Okay, so council external meeting reports. Because I've been sitting in this chair for almost 5 hours, I'll just give a really brief one on the. I attended the Cal LAFCO conference about 2 weeks ago, and just Napa LAFCO came away with 3 of the 6 awards that they give out every year, and our Napa LAFCO attorney, Gary Bell, who also happens to be our city attorney, took one away for an associate member award. And we also got the, I always think it's the grand award, which is the Mike Gotch Award every year. So, and our associate executive officer got the Lifetime Achievement Award. So, and myself and another member, a LAFCO member, were both elected to the Cal LAFCO board, and I am now chair of Cal LAFCO. So anyway, with that, I save all my other ones, and we had a great time at the meeting. So any other council meetings you want to talk about?
I attended the WIC meeting, and the gist of that meeting was that they want to revision what the watershed committee is about, and maybe reorganize it from the bottom up rather than a top-down vision. And they were talking, there was a severance of, they have an advisory board that's now going to be separate and not be part of the WIC group, and that helps the staff be able to handle all of that better. But then the announcement of there's going to be a symposium in 2024, and the theme of it will be One Water, and just to illustrate that everything affects everything in the water business, and since we were just talking about water, I think it's kind of timely. And the symposiums that have come before have been very well attended and very well received for all of the information that it provides the residents of Napa Valley. And then I attended the Climate Action Committee, and I think the biggest thing that came out of that is something that we need to consider, which will be new and intensified REACH codes for our buildings to make sure that electrical appliances and electrification is a desirable outcome over the use of gas. So all of the municipalities will be receiving these draft REACH codes, and if we all agree to them, it seems like that would be a really great way to approach it regionally rather than one municipality at a time. And so we need staff to review those things and make a presentation, and the committee is looking for a return answer by January.
It's aggressive.
Yeah, just to second what Pam said.
Vice Mayor Knight.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. First, I wanted to congratulate Mayor Moeller for being elected chair of CalAFCO. We talk about in our community, we are a small but mighty community. I mean, being chair of CalAFCO is a major success and benefits the Napa Valley and our community. And just recently, a few years ago, former Mayor John Dunbar was president of the League of California Cities. So we do a lot in this small community for the state of California. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So I did attend, I think the mayor was at CalAFCO, and I attended the Napa Valley Transportation Agency meeting, and we meet monthly. We meet initially as a tax agency to look when we address issues with Measure T, but the rest of the agenda we are talking about, we follow the progress of the Saskell Highway 29 project, which is moving forward, and we all hope that that project will wind up and get done early next year with the roundabout and the flyover for that project. We also look at and approve funding for the part of the Vine Trail project. They're working now between St. Helena and Calistoga. So there's funding and different types of research in terms of the construction or the cultural resource monitoring that they have to do. We also approved the purchase of 8 more electric buses for the Napa Valley that will be used around and about. So the Napa Valley Transportation Authority is moving as best they can with funding to purchase more and more electric vehicles, use less diesel, but they in the reality, they'll probably always have a few of those, but they're trying to, as we move forward, we purchase more and more electric vehicles. And one of the other things we did is we approved the Napa Valley Transportation Vision Zero plan at this October 19th meeting, which the Napa Valley Transportation and all the cities are working on plans and projects to reduce fatalities and major injuries on all our roads, including Highway 29. This is an effort that all the communities and all of our public works directors are involved with. In Yountville, they focus on projects and looking at Madison and 29 and then other streets in town where we're trying to reduce injury and accidents. So that's part of the 4 or 5 different things that we regularly see monthly at our transportation agency meeting. So thank you, Mayor.
Right. Thank you. With that, I will move on to adjournment. So can I get a motion and a second to adjourn to our next regular council meeting, which will be Tuesday, November the 21st in this location?
I move to adjourn.
A second.
A motion and Knight, I think, seconded, and all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and it passes unanimously. Thank you, and goodbye, everybody. Under 5 hours. Thank you.
Just barely. I'm waiting till the light goes off, but I wanted to catch you for a minute, Eric, but I'm waiting till the light goes off.
Okay.
See you tomorrow.